Hey, how you doing?
Are you? I'm great. How are you?
So this is completely impromptu.
Okay, yes.
Because I think we have met before.
Yes.
Are you running for office this
I
time?
am. I'm running for Martha Roby seat for Congress for Congressional District 2.
Okay. Well, it's great to see you again. Terry
Hasdorff.
Hasdorff. Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I've done like 6 interviews
No,
in
it's
the world,
okay. It's
so
okay.
my brain's a little, it's basically pudding at this point.
Sure.
All right. So you're running for Martha Roby's old seat.
I am.
Well, I gotta say, I think that a lot of people are running for that seat because Martha Roby sort of bowed out, which I wasn't expecting, and that pool is getting kind of crowded.
Yeah.
So, if you could really quickly just kind of explain some of the differences in you and some of your opponents and try to distinguish yourself a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I really feel called to do this. This is something for me that I prayed about, and I really felt like it was something that God was calling me to do. I am a Christian conservative. The way I got into politics was when I was in high school, I was asked by Governor Hunt to go on an exchange program to Russia.
Okay.
And I traveled to the Soviet Union, and I saw firsthand what communism and socialism looked like. We traveled to 7 different cities. It was 40 different high school students from across the state. And when I came back and the plane landed at JFK, I was so thankful to be an American that I literally got down on my hands and knees and kissed the ground. And it really made an impact on me as a young person. And, when I think about what's happening right now, where we've had this rise in socialism here in the United States, where people are actually considering electing a presidential candidate who is in favor of that, I'm horrified.
Multiple right now.
Yes, because I've seen this firsthand, and I can tell you that I am very passionate about that issue. I think that we need to rise up and fight back hard, because that is the absolute opposite of everything that makes America great. The thing that we are battling right now is basically what the left wants to push on us is substituting government for God. And, I'm in favor of God over government.
That's something I say on my show all the time, yeah.
Well, that's really what has driven me to want to run. This is a serious time that we live in right now in our country. And we need people that are going to fight for God over government.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that, because I think that's, arguably one of the best motivations anybody could have, is that they feel that, they have to preserve that, and that's something that God has sort of called them to do. So what I want to ask with that is, in the House right now, it's controlled by the Democrats. Probably will be controlled by the Democrats even if you're elected. I mean, that's not something that's likely to change. So if you were elected, how do you manage being in the opposition party? Like, what good does that do? Try to explain to the voter why having you in the House would be something that's beneficial for them, even though it might be controlled by the other side.
Well, the first thing that I would look at doing, I've already met with Congressman Mark Meadows. I'm excited about being a part of the Freedom Caucus. The House Freedom Caucus is, a group of conservative members of Congress. We need more conservatives to come in and join that fight and be able to push back against some of these things. I'm a conservative. I'm a woman who has faith and values and integrity, and those are things that I think we need more of in Congress. And this fight is a spiritual battle as well as a physical battle. So we need a lot of people of faith to join in and really push back on a lot of this liberal left agenda that's coming down the pike, and that's what I'm prepared to go in and do.
Well, now when it comes to that, I know that with the House specifically, everything that the federal government spends money on starts in the House. That's part of the Constitution.
That's right.
So when it comes to our spending levels, where do you think we should, since you said you're a conservative, what are some of the programs you think that we can cut? Maybe we can trim some here or there, remove completely. Like, where do you stand on some of those?
So I'm a fiscal conservative.
Okay.
My first job on Capitol Hill was working under Speaker Gingrich. And Newt Gingrich brought my boss and I in to bring reforms that were business-minded reforms to the operations of the House of Representatives. So I've had people tell me, be careful about telling people that you worked in Washington because they're going to think you're part of the swamp. Well, my response to that is, not only am I not part of the swamp, I helped drain one. So when I worked for the CAO's office, the first thing that we did was we conducted an independent audit on the operations of the House of Representatives.
Okay.
We hired PricewaterhouseCoopers to come in and do that audit.
Right.
They worked with us on coming up with ways to cut out the waste, fraud, and abuse that was happening there. And the reforms that we were able to put in place since those happened have saved the taxpayers over $4.4 billion. So I have a little experience with draining swamps. I'm excited about being able to join President Trump in draining some more. And I think that those same business-minded reforms, this isn't rocket science. It's very simple when you know what to do and how to start putting things in place to do it. That needs to be applied to every level of government, starting with, the agencies on down. So that's what I want to go in and do.
Now, when it comes to the House, one of the most important things that any representative can have is their committee appointments.
Right.
So what I really want to know and sort of dig down into is, I know that you don't always have control over that because that's something that's set by other people, and you kind of have to get what you can, you have to take what you can get, really. But what would your areas of expertise be? What would the committees you would try to get onto?
Sure. I think my first priority obviously would be armed services. We have Maxwell Air Force Base and Fort Rucker. So proud of the men and women that serve. I would want to go and fight for resources and definitely be there to push for the Peace Through Strength agenda and see what we could do on that front. And then the Agriculture Committee would probably be my second choice. We have some incredible farmers in this district. Look, we are very blessed here. We have the people that feed us and the people that protect us as two of the main people that are part of this, that make up this district.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and they need to have somebody fight for them the way they fight for us. Both of them are doing incredibly vital roles, and they need to be supported. So that's what I would want to go and do.
Well, when it comes to that, and I know that I'm wading into contradictory waters here, but since you are a fiscal conservative, I'm interested to hear your stance on this. There are an awful lot of farmers in Alabama, and they are big fans, a lot of them, of farm subsidies. Mm-hmm. So where do you stand on farm subsidies in general?
Well, I know we have our peanut farmers in particular who feel like they've been not able to move forward in recent years with even being able to increase their prices.
Right.
And they're very frustrated over that. I think somebody needs to fight for them and push for that. That's only fair. I think that subsidies in general are something that probably there could be some areas where I would need to study that a little bit more, but probably there could be some areas where there could be some reform there.
Okay. Well, I know that that's a tricky question because you don't want to get everybody, because the second that you say, well, let's look into it, they're like, oh no, they're going to take away.
Right.
And, I do think that there is, when it comes to that there's definitely, just like in any other place in government, there's room to make some cuts.
Right.
But since, especially District 2 is such a farm-heavy district, is there any other kind of deregulation? Because I know you mentioned price controls being one thing that you'd want to look at. Is there any other regulation that you would want to cut back that would help not just farmers but other working-class families in District 2?
I think that when you talk about deregulation, one of the areas that is a particular concern with this district is, anything that's regarding the military, anything that's regarding spending cuts to military families and bases. Definitely would want to make sure that we're protective of that. I think that looking at one of the main areas that I'm concerned about, you have rural areas that are not getting enough as far as healthcare, as far as needs met. So those are two of my biggest priorities right now, is looking at what we could do to address that with more doctors, more clinics, healthcare in the rural areas in particular.
So how do you balance that? Because I know that that's very tricky, because you're trying to make sure that as a fiscal conservative, you're not just like coming up with a government program that's going to spend a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So how do you do, what are some of the policies that you would push forward that try to help solve those problems without putting the taxpayer even further in debt than we already are?
Sure. So one of the things that I'm really great at and that I've done a lot in my career is bringing together people and resources from several different areas to meet needs. And so, we don't leverage the sectors very well. Everybody works in silos. So looking at how the nonprofit and the for-profit and the government sectors can start working together to meet some of these needs is critical. So let's take the rural healthcare, for example. There's nonprofits that are focused on that need to be given more grant funding. I would push for that and fight for those opportunities for them. Alabama typically has a lot of opportunity to pull down more grants than we take advantage of. And that's something that, as a member of Congress, you can write letters of support, you can advocate with agencies to be able to pull more of that down. So I would look at pushing for that. Second of all, there's ways that I know UAB in particular is particularly focused on wanting to do more with rural healthcare and telemedicine, and we need IT infrastructure to be able to support that. So getting rural broadband into some of these areas is going to be critical. Looking at how we can pull down funding. There's opportunity zone funding for that. There's other areas where we can leverage. It's a holistic approach, and you need all actors engaged to address some of these concerns, and that's what I want to pull together once I'm elected to Congress.
Okay. So one of the things that always I sort of look for in a candidate is where their base comes from. And I know you already got into that a little bit and sort of what drives you, talking about not only your kids but your faith. But when it comes to some of these policy issues, like how did you come to be where you are as a conservative? Was it just the trip to Russia? Was that just sort of the genesis of it? Or like, is this something you've always been interested in?
No, I think for me, obviously my faith drives everything that I do.
Sure.
And it's the worldview that I look through. It's that lens that I measure everything against. But, as somebody who has really looked at a lot of the issues and studied things from just working with them over the years, that the conservative viewpoint is something that just, not only is biblically sound, but it makes the most sense when you start looking at the economic impact and just the way that our country is needing to be protected in a lot of ways from liberal agenda.
So you do know, though, that it's democratic socialism. It'll be completely different than all the other socialisms that we've tried.
Socialism is socialism. The promises are always there. It's never worked. It's always failed. There's never been a time in history when it's worked.
Well, it's just a fact. You can't really argue that. Even the ones that push for it have to admit that pretty much every time it's ever been tried, and then they'll try to deny, well, that wasn't real socialism. But either way, at a certain point, you have to say scoreboard and take a look at it. But there are a lot of forces, and I would say even ones that have gained more traction in the House of Representatives, pro-socialism. How do you combat that? Because there are a lot of people that are in favor of it. They want to give these people a platform, and like we were talking about at the beginning of your interview, we've got two major candidates for the president right now. I would argue that some of them are and just won't admit it, but that are in favor of socialism. What's the best argument against socialism in your opinion?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, people of faith need to understand what that means, and I think that people who are not familiar with what socialism really looks like needs to start studying what some of these countries that have adopted socialism have become. Look at Venezuela. Look at Russia. When I was in Russia, you didn't have a menu that would be given to you. You got one choice. You'd walk into the restaurant, and that was all you got. And
Russia milk picks you.
Right. You don't have 15 different types of milk to choose from. You're lucky if you can get any milk, and you have to stand in line for 4 or 5 hours to hope to get it. That's what socialism looks like. Socialism is about taking away freedom, and basically it's replacing God with government. And we need people of faith to stand up against that. We need people who are willing to fight and push back, and that's what I'm prepared to do.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being with us, Terry Hasdorff.
Hasdorff.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm terrible with names, and so I'm self-conscious about it. Even when I say it right, I feel like I'm saying it wrong. And she's running for District 2, Martha Roby's old seat.
Yes.
And we wish you the best of luck.
Thanks
for being
much.
with us.
It's an honor to be with you.
If somebody was interested in your campaign, wanted to support you,
absolutely, how
would they do that?
TerryForCongress.com. TERRI for Congress.com. TerryForCongress.com.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Well, it looks like everybody's kind of filtering out, so what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to wrap up. thanks so much for being with us. We hope that you've enjoyed the program, and hopefully this has been something that's been informative to you. I know it certainly was to me. Didn't get to get every candidate in here, but hopefully we've been able to get enough of you. We thank also the Wetumpka Tea Party for hosting this event that has helped us immensely on making some of these decisions. If you want to get in touch with them, they have a website, wetumpkateaparty.com, I believe is the website, if I'm not mistaken. And we appreciate you being here with the program. In the meantime, stay the course, friends.